Hey, good morning. This is Steve Wiideman, and this is another episode of the Unbottleneck podcast. And today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that's content marketing. And content marketing is this big fog or mist of, where do we go? Where do we start? How do we get the right content? Do I need to put thousands of blog posts on my site, or can I do a few really good ones and still see the same success? Joining me today is Ashley Saunders. He's an affiliate marketing expert, and let me tell you a little bit more about Ashley. He's worked in a number of industries, from music to property to e-commerce. We've talked a lot about e-commerce on this show, so maybe we'll bring that one in again. Currently, Ashley's involved in building digital assets and provides content marketing strategy and advice to affiliate website owners. You can actually sign up for Ashley's content map course on his website, and that's ajsdigitalgroup.co.uk. You've got to check this thing out. You'll learn a lot about how content works and how to build a structured content plan. Over the years, he's built his digital marketing skills with a strong focus on search engine optimization, copywriting, and blogging. He's still curious about online marketing, as all of us are. We're scholarly while we're still considered experts in our field, as well as SaaS and all things digital. He's launched an ebook company, a global e-commerce shop, and started the current brands that you see in the AJS Digital Group's portfolio. Also built countless websites for a range of clients. And outside of work, he enjoys guitar, tennis, and exploring country houses, which, being from LA, seems like a surreal experience for me. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit about before the show about how you kind of got involved in digital marketing and how friends, dad showed you something. Can you give us a little more history of how you got started and what got you into this whole industry?
Sure. So I think I was about 15, 16, and I was staying with a friend for the weekend, and his dad was head of computers at his school, and he said, right, I want to teach HTML programming on Monday. You two are going to be my guinea pig for the weekend. And so that's kind of how it all kind of started. So I learned how to basic HTML, CSS over the weekend from a book, and he was kind of guiding us as well. And it's kind of three of us sat there trying to figure it out together. But it was just the most kind of amazing experience. And over the
You
years,
were like Neo. You just took a book and you just learned it. What was that? The movie Phenomenon, where he took a
right,
book on Portuguese and learned it on the way to go help somebody who didn't speak English, right? So
right,
you did kind
right.
of the same thing with HTML. You're like, give me the book, we'll master HTML. The next day
Yeah,
you woke up and you were a webmaster.
yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
And I still use those skills even today. I still do a lot of programming. I still obviously have to talk to people about on-site SEO, which we'll get into, I guess,
Mhm.
and understanding all that markup and all that language. And so that, to me, is the best kind of standing for in terms of if you want to get into SEO or content
It really
marketing or
is
whatever.
fundamental. You're right.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think a lot of
I
people
get asked that question a
nowadays.
lot too. Hey, do I need to know HTML to be in SEO? And I'm like, well, it's a well-rounded discipline. You should know a
Yeah,
little bit of everything.
yeah,
You don't need to master it, but
yeah.
learn the basics. Learn the basic heading tags so that
Mm, mm,
where to emphasize search terms. Learn the basic meta tags to know what
right, exactly,
Google is going to show in their results. But in
exactly.
terms of having to learn all the syntax for every different way
Mm,
you use a website, table
mm,
fields, and things like that, you probably don't need to know those anymore
no,
because there's web developers that can do that work for you.
yeah, but I also feel like a lot of people these days are using big platform sites like Wix and Squarespace and those kind of things,
Did
where
you
they're
use the
really
W
bloated and
word?
they're really
We don't use
heavy.
the W word in SEO
right,
unless you want to be an SEO hero,
right,
right?
right. I'll go get a cape. um, and I feel like for a lot of businesses, actually starting on say Squarespace is might be not the greatest idea, but it's an idea, and then working with like a developer or an SEO to then promote your site. I think you kind of have to understand
Right.
some basic HTML because you have to understand how to go in there and say, right, okay, this isn't perfect, but here's how we can fix these little issues, or here's how we can take a Squarespace site and replicate it on, say, WordPress or on a standard HTML
Mhm.
site, and actually make this page size tiny in comparison because obviously they're bloated and they're built for the user
Mhm.
kind of graphic interface, aren't they? not for
Right.
SEO, not for speed, which
Yeah.
to me has always seemed backwards. But that's, I guess, I know too much, right? So
And then as they become better digital marketers, they start to realize, hey, I need to create some content. I'm not showing up for
right,
anything that I should be
right,
showing up for.
right.
And as they start getting into that process of, all right, I need to figure out what
Mm,
content I need to have and what keywords I should be showing up for. And you've kind of got past that whole, I've set up my website, about
yeah.
us, services, contact, I'm done now. Now I need content. How does one generate seamlessly ending content ideas, in your opinion?
So for me, it always comes back to what am I trying to communicate with my customer,
Okay.
and so for me, top of the funnel, that I think about is what kind of questions am I either getting asked every day by customers, or what are their kind of their pain points or their
Hmm.
concerns, and how can I help them educate and move them along the process,
Right.
in a meaningful way that doesn't obviously scare them off, but helps them to build trust and authority with me, or to build an understanding with me about what I can help them deliver. And
And
so
if
I
you're a new
think,
business, you could probably do that with competitors too, right? You could look at the
absolutely,
competition and see what they're saying about them.
absolutely, absolutely. And so, yeah, so take like a local garage, for example.
Hmm.
As a local garage, you probably have the same kind of 10 questions coming up every day or every week,
Right.
right? And so it's then about changing it into content that is accessible on the website, and you should start to rank because probably very few garages or very few of your competitors are producing content that is actually answering the user's kind of pain points or questions.
Sure.
And instead, they're probably saying, "Here's a list of our services," which is fine,
Hmm.
but doesn't actually help the customer, trust you, or help inform the customer as what your expertise is. I think
Yeah.
it's so easy because I think a lot of people get confused because they think what we need to be online, and so they get a website and they think done and dusted, right?
It's a brochure.
Yeah, right. Um, and then they're going out there every week and they're running different ads, in the local paper or online, etc. But they never think about updating the website. And I think if you're stuck in the market where nobody's updating the website, you
Hmm.
got a huge opportunity to actually get ranked or to start ranking for lots of key terms that are actually really helpful for your end user,
Hmm.
and can help you actually generate business that way. And I think it's just that little shift, that little mindset shift between believing that what we've done online is fine, and actually
Sure.
thinking, right, we just recalibrate slightly, and we
Yep.
can try and be really helpful, and boom, we can have lots of customers. We can
It's
have
it's that aha moment. I love that.
right,
I love when you deliver a in your words, content map, right,
yeah,
to a client, and they're like, "Oh my god, I didn't even think about these pages. I
mm,
sell, 5 fabricated spiral staircases, and I have
right,
5 pages for them. I never
yeah,
thought to create a whole section on my website for the reasons they use the staircases, like,
right, exactly,
patio staircases, library spiral
yeah,
staircases,
yeah,
basement spiral
yeah,
staircases. I could create all these different pages with
mm,
pictures of, my staircases in those different
yeah.
scenarios and draw in more traffic based on what their needs
Absolutely,
are.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And then you can also take the negatives. So you can also say, things like with the spiral staircases, how not to, because people think, oh, it's easy, I can do it in a weekend, right?
Right.
You then can have a list of 10 things that are beginner's mistakes that you shouldn't do. And,
Yeah.
obviously at the end you can have a call to action, which is hire a professional, which is us,
Sure.
and that's a great way of generating business.
I love that. And thinking about keywords again, sometimes you get clients that come to you and they're like, "Hey, I want to rank for the word credit card, right? And or the keyword credit card." And you're like, "Well, let's talk about that." Right? And
Right,
then you
right,
you have to have sort of that coming to God conversation with them that that there's been brands that are spending millions of
yeah,
dollars a year
yeah,
to rank for certain search terms because it
mm,
drives most of their business, especially if they're an online business.
right,
So thinking about keywords you could actually rank for, right, instead
yes,
of those
yeah,
sort of obvious broader ones.
mm.
What are some ways that marketers who are getting into content strategy, that they can find keywords you can actually rank for?
Sure. So I love questions because I think we all as humans think into the question form, and
Hmm.
I think if you try and create content in question form,
Right.
you can actually start to rank because you're ranking for the long tail at that point.
Hmm.
Because you're not just ranking for your like credit cards, you're ranking for how can I get a new credit card? How can I
So
pay
you're
off
saying
my
start with
existing
the
credit
upper
card?
funnel.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
That's
that's how I kind
interesting.
of think. And then the next step down is probably something like best. So best credit
Right.
card, best spiral staircase. How to
Top
measure my
10.
space. Yeah, top
Yeah.
10. How to measure my space for a spiral staircase.
Right.
Um, and then I guess the third step in something like credit cards is A versus B or C versus D, those kind of things, or you know um, or why headline rate isn't the top thing that you should be looking at, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
those kind of things. I think you do have to kind of break the funnel, don't you, into kind of the 3 or 4 steps. I think it was
Hmm.
HubSpot. I read an article about this for my own blog a couple of weeks ago. I think
Okay.
HubSpot has 4 steps in the process, and yeah, and I think you can extrapolate each of the 4 steps into an amazing amount of content that you can then talk about because you're just trying to help people at the different stages, and therefore you're
Right.
not alienating people that just come in and just kind of at the top of the funnel, but you're also really, really targeting people that are ready to buy, ready to give you the cash
Hmm.
in a way that speaks to them, and in a way that builds trust instantly with them, which then hopefully gets them to handle their money, which is what we all want, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, so
So
I do
to
think it's
come up
about
with
trying.
those ideas, you come up with those ideas. What kind of tools do you use to sort of validate that they're actually searched for? Because I was when I was in the early days of SEO, I was trying to rank for keywords that nobody was searching for. Then they're searching for them now, but then I was searching or trying to rank for all sorts of words that employers and peers were like, why would you want to rank for that? And I'm like, well, one day I think people are going to search for that, and I'll have
Yeah,
5 6 years of history on it. But
yeah,
what are some tools that you could use right now if you want to validate that there's actually people searching?
sure. So one tool that I recommend if you don't have any money is Uber Suggest,
Hmm.
which is Manuel Patel, who's a digital marketing god. Um,
Neil's
and
going to be a guest speaker for my students on the 23rd, I think.
oh man,
28th, no, the
they're
28th.
lucky.
Yeah, yeah, he's
You,
a good
you,
guy.
you, I might have to. You have to hook me up with that one. I'd love to hear that. So he's got an excellent tool that it's a limited version, but it's good enough to kind of get some data from. And I only look at 2 figures. So I only look at average monthly searches, which is kind of
Okay.
the rough estimate of the volume, and then the competitive, so the keyword difficulty score, which tells you how much who you're competing against in terms of a lot of external factors. So that's
Right.
one tool that I recommend people using. And then the other one that I use is SEO Power Suite, which has a module called Rank Tracker,
Okay.
which does about 100 different things. It's got 10 different modules that you can literally type in a C keyword and it will give you thousands of keywords to rank for, including like questions, people also searched,
Uh-huh.
related questions. Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
mind-boggling how how one tool can be so powerful.
Right.
And SEO Power Suite is really, really affordable. I think it's a couple $100 a year.
Hmm.
And then obviously if you're agency, then you can look at something like Ahrefs or SEMrush,
Yep.
which is an agency package, so it's really expensive. So I don't actually recommend those two. Either I've used both of them, for
Sure.
years. I don't recommend them because they're just for the average business. It's like taking a hammer to a walnut,
Hmm.
isn't it? So
I think one of my favorite tools to use too, and they do have a free version of it, especially if you're starting with that upper funnel that you mentioned,
right, right.
is Answer the Public.
Oh
And what
yeah, I
I'll
love
do is
that. Absolutely
I'll
love that.
take that
Yeah,
Answer the Public, and then I'll
yeah.
use the Google Keyword Planner
Right,
to get an
right,
estimate of what the volume is for some of those
right.
search terms. Because like Uber suggests, like Neil's tool, it takes auto suggest
Yeah, yeah,
phrases. So that's why there's
yeah.
no data around it, because they're not taken from a database. They're taken
Mm,
from a scrape of the auto suggest that comes up
right.
as you start searching.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that tool, and I think also that tool is fantastic in terms of if you're just stuck on like a C keyword. So you're stuck
Hmm.
on like spiral staircases and you can't think of anything to write about because you've written about everything that you think you can. If you just
Yeah.
type spiral staircase, it will give you another 200 ideas or another kind of 50 ideas, And so yeah, that tool is really powerful. I love that. Yeah.
So you've got all these keywords. You've kind of mapped out which ones are questions and how to, where to, why to,
Yeah.
strategies, tips, ideas, the upper funnel, and then you've kind of identified what those more customer driving search terms are,
Mm.
keywords are. You've got all these keywords. What do you do next?
So what I like to do is I like to define how often I'm going to publish. Right. So I take a step back and I try and say to
Yeah.
people, so like consistency wins the race. I know you know that because it's just the given, isn't it? Right.
Hmm.
So I don't think with people, if you're going to publish once a week, you probably want to think about your three buyers kind of steps, right? So you want to do
Okay.
1 week top of the funnel, 1 week middle of the funnel, and 1 week bottom of the funnel, because then you're not boring yourself, but also you're not boring your reader, and also you're trying to drive consistent traffic for each part of the funnel. So
Interesting.
that's what I would look at, and also I'd look at how to bring variety in, so you're not always writing about the same topic, or you're not writing about the
Sure.
same kind of problem every time. Um, so yeah, so I would try and map everything out into one big long list. Get your search volume, get your keyword difficulty, and then
Right.
start to arrange it in like a logical sense that isn't going to bore anyone, but it's going to provide real value and it's really going to educate.
It's awesome. I know something that we've been working with some of the students. Like I have an SEM class I teach too,
Right.
and one of the exercises is organize these keywords into ad groups, right?
Mm.
And what's fun about that is, like you said, it's one giant list. And
Yeah.
the first thing they do is they go through and identify, what's a branded keyword and what's a
Right.
non-branded keyword. We obviously want to bid on both, and in organic, we also want to make sure that we have a branded content strategy first, so that people aren't getting traffic from our keywords,
Mm.
right? So we separate those two, and then we identify, is this relevant or is it not relevant? If it's not relevant from a paid search standpoint, those keywords go into a negative keyword list,
Right.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
SEO, they're just not used, right? We're
No.
just not
No.
going to
No.
use them in
Yeah.
context. But for PPC, it's a negative. And then
Right.
then we start to group the search terms by what we think the user's intent is.
Mm.
So like for Applebee's, when they have a promotion, say sizzling fajitas, right?
Right.
There's sizzling fajitas, and there's different types. There's
Yeah.
chicken and shrimp and steak, and so we organize those into different groups so that we can create ad copy that incorporates those words. And from an
Mm.
SEO standpoint, those become pages. But I think as you start to group everything, you start to see some themes. And
Yeah.
those predominant themes, in some cases, you'll organize the keywords into tabs in a workbook, depending on how many you have. And
Sure.
eventually you start to realize, hey, these tabs would work really good as a top navigation to
Yeah.
identify
Yeah.
and help the user with all these different areas
Yeah.
of things that we support.
Yeah.
If you look at the jacuzzi website and go to their jacuzzi section, you can see
Right.
how they've organized it based on price, based on the type, how many people it fits,
Mm.
and all these different specifications that
Mm.
that users are navigating to get. So I think all those search terms start
Yeah.
to get organized into what eventually becomes, your information architecture. And
Exactly.
some
Yeah.
SEOs like to use the term taxonomy, right?
Yeah.
They'll create taxonomies based on the data. So it's this nice organized list,
Mm.
indented list based on the themes and the groupings of those search terms. And that ultimately becomes what I think your HTML sitemap is going to look like in 2 or 3 years from
Right.
now,
Right. Yeah.
right? So you're almost
Exactly.
like working
Exactly.
in reverse. You're creating your
Yeah.
sitemap, you load all that stuff into either a
Yeah.
Google Sheet or into a project management system, you assign it to writers, and now your content plan is hopefully got a nice kickstart.
Yeah.
But that's again, that's just kind of a roadmap
Mm.
of how you might
Mm.
take some search terms. But could you give us some ideas of how you might build a content plan for, say, the next 3 to 6 months? Not necessarily the 5-year plan of all the pages we
Sure.
want to show up for, but next 3 to 6 months. Actually, what do I do?
So what I would start with like big topics. So I try and create. So I would do the hub and spoke model. So I think about probably 5 or 6 different hubs,
Okay.
and so I create them to begin with, and then over the next couple of months and maybe over the next couple of years, I then start to build up the spokes that sit around
Okay.
them. Because I think once you have those pillars in place,
Right.
building out related content is actually really, really simple because you can basically take your pillars and go, right, okay, each section becomes its own post, and can we
Right.
extrapolate that further? And
Sure.
therefore, you kind of done 50% of the work in advance, haven't you? Um, or you've got a really, really great foundation to start from. So
Okay.
that's what I would do is really think what are the big topics that I'm going to try and rank for,
Okay.
because likelihood that you'll rank for them in the next 6 months is probably very slim, but in the next 5 years it's probably quite big. And then
Sure.
think
I
about
would say
supporting
it might
content.
be helpful too to plan for having a voice in what's happening in the industry too. And our
Right,
industry
yeah,
is a little bit more dynamic than something
right,
say like cement sculptures, right? That's
yeah,
not going to
right,
change very often. But
yeah,
SEO is like every day there's
yeah,
something new. But having a voice in the
mm,
industry, or even if you're a cement sculptor, you could have part of your content plan. I think include something that's paying attention to what others in the industry are doing and having
yeah,
commentary on
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
that way you
absolutely,
give them recognition, you
yeah,
build sort of rapport with them, and
yeah,
they start to recognize you and be involved
mm,
in your content strategy, as opposed to you saying, I'm going to lock my doors and go in my house and do a bunch of stuff. And then I'm going to come
yeah.
out and go, ta-da,
So that,
right?
yeah,
Instead of
exactly,
doing that, you
exactly,
open the doors up and you
yeah,
bring everybody in. And
yeah,
then before you know it, you've got a party going on and everyone's like,
right,
whoa, what's going
exactly,
on?
yeah,
So yeah, I love
yeah,
the static idea of, hey, let's create some evergreen
mm,
content that's well organized, that solves problems,
yeah,
and let's augment that with something that's a
mm,
little bit more short term and
yeah.
staying in the conversations on what's happening in our industry.
But
I love that.
I guess the other thing is with so if you're doing thought leadership, you're doing a post about thought leadership, and
Right.
you're talking about different people in the industry, you should ultimately rank for maybe low down on the first page, but you should be able to rank and say if you're looking for interviews with blah blah blah, if you haven't done an interview with X,
Yeah.
you'll still rank for that, and that can still bring you good traffic.
Mhm.
Trust because people are going to trust that you're active in the industry and you know what you're doing. I think that's really really powerful. And another thing you can do is you can always approach people and say, "Hey, I really love what you do. Can we do like a blog swap where we interview each other, and your interview goes on your site, my interview goes on my site, and it helps us both."
Love that. Hey, we're here right now, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly, right.
Yeah.
And because I think that's really, really powerful, and that's just kind of that's actually bypassing having to go to mass media, right? And having to do like
Right.
PR outreach, and the
Hmm.
benefits can be just as powerful because you're each targeting your own target market, and they're going to be excited about what's happening in the industry. Hopefully, unless
Right.
talk about cement, which I guess they're you know might
I
not
love
be.
that. Yeah,
Um,
get the thought leaders involved, and I
yeah,
think the same thing happens in the social media medium.
yeah,
Is you don't just start out and blast your stuff out.
no,
You start collaborating with other
right,
influencers who are at your level, right? And then
right,
you build off of each other to
yeah,
build into higher levels. And then you look back 3 years later and you're like, wow, remember when we started and we each only had like 1,000 followers, and now we
yeah,
both have like 100,000.
yeah,
And then you get back together and you continue to support each other. And
yeah, yeah,
I think that's great. I love that our community in digital marketing
mm,
has the will to do that. I think
yeah,
other industries, older industries,
mm,
are so competitive that they won't even let you talk to somebody with the competition. In
yeah,
our industry, we do just the opposite. We give
yeah,
away everything and help each other grow.
yeah.
You know, I love
But
that. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a generational thing. I think a lot of people, in the past were taught to be scared of competition. Well, I
Hmm.
think in like the last kind of 20, 30 years, we've really embraced competition as a way of finding our own uniqueness and finding our own kind of differentiation.
Yep.
And I think that is really, really powerful. And that doesn't negate the fact that you can't, that you shouldn't help other people, that you can't help other people. And yeah, and so I think if you want to disrupt your industry and your industry is very closed,
Hmm.
then do as much as you can to make everyone else feel uncomfortable, and
Right.
everyone else. If people start telling you, "Well, this isn't the way we do things," go, "Great, I love it," yeah,
Sure.
right, and try to do more of that because you'll get noticed for the right reasons. Hopefully,
I love that.
um,
I think Jim Rohn has a quote on that. He actually said, and this is something I think does align with our industry a lot, because there are
right,
some complacent agencies, and when my team's like, "Why are you giving all the information to this agency?
yeah,
They're technically a competitor." I'm
yeah,
like, because I've seen the way that they work, and I've seen
yeah,
the way that they the passion that they don't have, that
right,
we do.
right,
So
yeah,
the quote was that you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And I
right,
think that
exactly.
that holds true. And
That so does,
when
yeah,
we're being competitive and we all know all the secrets and the tricks, it's actually doing them that sets you apart and doing them
yeah,
well. And
yeah,
you either, you know the secrets and you just
yeah.
are complacent or don't want to make the investment or take the leap,
Mm,
or
mm,
you decide to take shortcuts and you offshore your staff to try to cut some costs, and things
right,
don't
yeah,
show up quite as professional as you would
yeah,
expect them to be. So
yeah,
so I think that's the differentiator. If
mm,
I were thinking about my contents and my branding and what I was doing and how our industry really does differentiate itself,
yeah, yeah,
there's that upper echelon of 2 or 3% of us that will stay up till 3 in the morning, collaborate with others, hire the right
mm,
resources,
yeah,
spend $5,000 on an infographic, and have this ultimate page that nobody can compete against, right?
right, right,
But
exactly,
then there's the other 98% that just
yeah,
will try to find the shortcuts. They'll go to
mm,
Fiverr, they'll go to any cheap affordable resource that they could come
yeah,
up with in an effort to try to compete, instead of just swallowing the pill and doing what needs to be done
mm,
the right way. It's
mm,
kind of funny, and I think that's a really strong content point. It's not just about, hey, let's find the right keywords and map out the
right,
content we need to create. Let's make sure that every page that we have is genuinely more helpful
mm,
than the competing pages. Let's
mm,
make sure that we've got more diverse media and rich media
yeah,
to share with our users. Let's not use stock images that search engines already have indexed. Let's come up with our own
mm,
images and photos and graphics. Let's really stand apart. And like you said earlier, if you're starting at the upper funnel, you can
yeah,
incorporate a lot of that problem
right,
solving into the
yeah,
sales copy, because
absolutely,
now you're
yeah,
you're hitting on those pain points,
yeah, yeah,
right away. I love that idea.
yeah.
But
But I guess the other thing to think about as well is your own voice as a writer. I think a lot of people think in sort of scholastic writing, right?
right,
And so they're not copywriters and they don't think. And the moment you
yeah,
say, "Can you write me? Can you write me a blog post on um, you know roadways?" Right? They think
sure.
they then produce this epilogue of really dense, really boring
And, the
copy that
user gets
doesn't
to
help
that page
anyone.
and like, what am I reading? What is this? A
Yeah, yeah,
definition? I need
yeah,
help with
yeah,
my driveway.
yeah. Right, exactly, exactly. And so you know, I, I've observed people that write copy effectively. Maybe not the best copywriters, maybe not the best writers in general,
Hmm.
but they can write as they have like they can write as if they were sat there having a glass of wine or a beer with you or having a meal
Yeah.
with you. I think that's
Hmm.
what makes it more engaging. I think if people can get out their own headspace, right, and just
Yeah.
think about if I was sat talking to Steve, and we're having lunch, how would I talk to Steve, right? And let's
Right.
try and get that down. And so, one way to do that is obviously to jump on Zoom and record yourself speaking like you're giving a talk to like your best friend, or get
Sure.
your phone out and record onto your phone.
Right.
But another way is to read that through it after and think, well, is that kind of the language that I would use if I was talking to a prospective client or a client?
Yep.
Because I think a lot of people like they start to think about, well, the industry does it this way, and it's like, okay, fine, but that's very very minimal. So obviously if you're in high tech semiconductors or in medical or pharmaceuticals, there probably is a regulatory framework that you have to work within in terms of the language you can use. But if
Sure.
you're doing like garbage
Oh, like
collection,
attorneys. Hmm.
yeah, and attorneys, right? But if you're doing something like garbage collection, why can't you have a bit of fun? Why can't you put your personality into it?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think,
Can I tell you a pet peeve of mine with
please,
copywriters?
yeah,
There's thousands and thousands and thousands of copywriters out
right,
there writing content right now,
right,
and almost every single one that I've worked with delivers a page without a suggested title and meta description. And it drives me crazy. You're writing copy for the web
yeah,
and you don't want to have a suggested title and description for what your page is
yeah,
going to look
yeah,
like in search results. Are
yeah.
they all not trained to do that? Or are they all just saying, I don't want to do that? And it's really frustrating to me, because
Mm,
a lot of them have been doing copywriting now for
right.
years,
Yeah.
and they'll deliver this page back to you. And you're like, do you want to write a title and description that I could use? Oh, just use the heading. Well, no, I need my heading to be a little bit different because I don't want to be
Yeah.
repetitive, and
No.
and
Right.
so forth. So
Yeah.
it drives me nuts. I think so.
Yeah.
Any copywriters that are out there, really impress your
Yeah.
clients. go back to them when you
Yeah.
submit and say, oh, by the way, I've also included some of the search terms that I think this page should rank for, and
Yeah.
a title and a description
Yeah.
that you could use to show up in search results with. And there's plenty of preview tools out there. We have one on our site you could use.
Yeah.
There's a ton of tools that you could use to
Yeah.
put your suggested title and description in there and see what it might look like. With our clients, we even provide a preview. We actually take a screenshot and we're like, this is what it's going to look like in the search results. And they go, oh, and then they start to realize what the purpose of that content is, you know, in terms of trying to appear in search results.
And again, that's like the 1% better, isn't it? In action.
Yep.
Right.
And it's just a strange dynamic that it's been so long. Well, thinking about our copy and getting indexed and showing up in search results, what are some ways to improve your chances of getting your content indexed in search results? What are some things you do? You've published this page, it's on the website, it's not showing up in Google yet. What do you do?
So, firstly, I like to go and build some internal links, because I think if you've got pages that are ranking already, Google maybe crawling your site, but maybe hasn't found that because it's not obvious. So I like to go and build some internal links. I think if you're doing something like latest post at the bottom of your every blog post, for example, that does help in some ways, because it just gives Google a heads up. It doesn't help, I don't think, in terms of like screaming at Google, hey, you got index, hey, you got index. So I think also, if you're operating in a market where you can do something like Pinterest, right? So you're operating in a visual market, Pinterest pins get indexed really, really quickly.
Interesting.
And actually, Google,
I thought there was a no follow on those links.
There is, but for some reason, Google. So I've had posts that I've put up, and I'll put the pin, and they've ranked. You know, they've been indexed within a couple of hours.
That sounds really interesting. And Rand said Twitter as well. Like you could use
Twitter as well.
Was talking about how Twitter can help you to rank and index content. So, and both of them are no follow, which is really interesting. So I think we have some testing ahead of us to prove some of these.
Yeah, because Facebook doesn't de-index. So Facebook it doesn't. Sorry, Google doesn't index Facebook posts, nor does it do that on LinkedIn. And so yes, I was quite surprised when I was having a discussion, I should say, a couple of weeks ago with another SEO, and he was saying, well, you shouldn't be posting the same content on LinkedIn as on your blog. And I was like, I'm sure nothing from LinkedIn is getting indexed other than like company pages and profile pages.
Yeah, a lot of the content's gated.
Right. And so within about 10 seconds, I was like, here's a screenshot, based off a URL that we were talking with a mutual friend about. And what
about Google Search Console, Ashley? Can users help get their content indexed quicker using some of these tools like Bing Webmaster Tools or Google Search Console?
I haven't seen that necessarily be the quickest way to get things indexed.
Interesting. Okay.
So
when you get queued up after you submit your URL for indexing, you're saying it could be weeks or something before your page will actually show up?
Days.
There's another fun test for us, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna orphan a page on purpose, and then I'm gonna try a couple of different indexing methods. The ones that you mentioned first, because I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah.
And then what other ways do you think someone can get their page indexed if they don't use internal links and they're not using Pinterest or Twitter and they don't submit the URL to Search Console or add it to their sitemap?
Sitemap. So I'm trying to think. Well, I guess they're still.
We used to do some shady stuff. Remember back in the early days, in the wild west of SEO.
Well, I mentioned something shady you could do. You could go to one of these bookmarking sites. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah,
back
Delicious.
That's yeah. And I guess you could do it in there. I guess another thing you could do is you could just outreach and say, I'm trying to get this post indexed. I see you got a post so you got a post that could reference my post. Would you mind putting a link?
Awesome.
And so that's another way. The other thing that I just said about Search Console is, I don't know whether you've noticed this, but I think I've noticed this. Over the years, they've started to reduce the amount of data you can see. So it will say things like, this page has been found but hasn't been indexed. and then you go onto Google and type site, colon, then the URL, and it pops up.
Right.
And so I'm thinking, is there a lag between Google and the Google tool, or is there a disconnect between they don't want to share too much, and that's one of the ways that they're trying to start to limit users access to data. I don't. That's just my superstition acting,
I love
but
that we're getting 16 months of data now. That's my favorite
yeah,
part
right
of
as well.
seeing that in
Yeah,
Search Console. I don't like that they've moved the legacy tools into a legacy tools section. I think they should have
no,
upgraded them and moved them into the main
yeah,
area.
yeah,
And I miss a lot of the linking tools. There's still some data in there around,
right,
who's
yeah,
linking and why, and the fact that a business has to go through living hell and use 3 different third-party tools to discover toxic links that are coming in,
yeah,
to
yeah,
go after them, to disavow
yeah,
them, and to
yeah,
do a
yeah,
reconsideration request, instead of
yeah,
Google just saying, here are the links, remove these,
correct,
and
right,
we'll reconsider you.
yeah,
That we
yeah,
have to play a game with them,
yeah,
because competitors are doing shady things to try to hurt our
right,
rankings.
right, right,
I
yeah,
could go on for hours about Search Console.
yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast for sure. But this is about
We'll have
you
to do a special
and
one
your
in a
content
couple of months' time, won't we?
Yep. So thinking back on this whole idea of creating a really strong content
Mm.
strategy, getting our pages indexed, not using shady tools,
She's
just
still
going through the motions of trying to get
yeah.
those links shared by peers, friends,
Mm.
affiliates. Um, Thinking about that and kind of stepping back, you've got an affiliate website and you want to
Yeah.
start creating content to generate affiliate traffic. I know years ago Google started to really crack down on content that they thought was less helpful or was a doorway page, right? Instead
Mm.
of showing this article, this affiliate page article, I'm just going to show the actual branded website, right? Or
Right.
or a major PC magazine or something
Right.
that has more credibility and authority. So a lot of us
Mm.
affiliate marketers, and I was affiliate marketer back in the
Back in the
2000s
day.
myself,
Right.
kind of got slapped by
Right.
search engines, and our content just got pushed out of the results in most cases. If somebody wanted to be an affiliate that and generate traffic from links that are in affiliate marketing, what's the best way to go about that in today's day and age? Because you'd mentioned that that you've generated sites that or created sites that generate over 5,000 a month in profits. So
Mm.
I'd love to hear how if I wanted to get back into affiliate marketing, how I could do that and not worry about my content getting filtered out.
So I think a lot of people, 10, maybe even 5 years ago, but 10 years ago, were doing things like. Actually, I can give you a great example. I got an email a couple of weeks ago from somebody that runs, I think it's like bestironingboards.com, right?
Okay.
And I went and had a look at their website, and it's literally ironing boards and irons, and that's all they're talking about. And so it's all product comparisons or product recommendations.
Okay.
And I think they're having a really hard time getting indexed and getting ranked because they're not finding any value. Because
Right.
all of that information is available by like Good Housekeeping or I try
Oh, you're almost like creating. Remember the old Squidoo sites back in the day?
right,
So
right,
you're creating
right,
a mashup of curated content as opposed to coming up
right.
with something
Yeah,
new and
and
helpful. Okay.
I think like with that example, people might go to like say Martha Stewart because obviously they trust her, they know her, they know she's not going to recommend rubbish. Well,
Sure.
theoretically speaking, right? And so I think it then becomes about what supporting content you can create that helps the user, that demonstrates to Google that you want to be helpful and that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I think Google is not going to, in a month of Sundays, Google is not going to index you or rank you if you're just talking about the best irons.
Hmm.
Whereas, if you're talking about, say, how to iron shirts, we recommend you use this product. That's an affiliate link, right?
Right.
To iron, cotton shirts, right? For t-shirts, we recommend you use this type of product, and here's the 5 steps to actually iron your shirt like a pro. Here's
Yeah.
a tool that you can use to fold your t-shirts properly or shirts or whatever, right? And so you're actually building out some depth of content that isn't just fluff and isn't able to be found. And the other thing that I think is a lot of people, they think about writing review content in a very one-dimensional kind of focus. So
Okay.
they I think they believe that they can just slap together a page with like 10 products with a short little review, and that's good enough. Well, I think the user, especially, and like, I don't tend to focus too much on what Google thinks or wants. I tend to
Don't we
think
all?
I tend to think about I'm dealing
The
with on
God
the
of
other end of the
Google.
screen is another human who's got desires, wishes, and frustrations just as like I have. So how can I
Sure.
talk directly to that person? And I think you know how can I help them make a better buying decision or a better informed decision? And I think the way you can do that is by saying, right, here's how we've evaluated the products, on these 5 criteria, or here's how we can, here's the best product if you've got this type of
Hmm.
requirements. So, for example, I just wrote a post on subwoofers, right, for home cinemas, and
Okay.
it's like the top one is probably the top one was the second most expensive one, but was great because of what it does, because it links with an app, and if you control your home cinema via an app now, right,
Sure.
essentially you want to be able to go and program the subwoofer along with your link to the hi-fi, your AV receiver, etc. Right, with your
Right.
setup. So actually having it on an app that you can control with a touchpad or your phone is far more useful than having to get down on your hands and knees every time and try and adjust
Right.
things. Right. But obviously, if you've just got like a small snug, right, where it's a TV room, you got a big sofa. There's a little unit from Cambridge Audio, which is a UK company, that's 200 watts. It's really powerful subwoofer, but it's micro. It's like that kind of size, right? And
Sure.
actually, for a smaller room, that's perfect because it's not going to be too powerful. It's not going to be too feature laden for you to like have a million two things to think
It's not
about.
going to be
Yeah,
big and gaudy in your room. Yeah.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Sure.
And actually, look, it's black and it has silver kind of banding, so it looks really, really elegant. And to me, I'm thinking, okay, right, so it may not be the best product you can buy in terms of buying a subwoofer, but
Hmm.
it's the best product if you're looking for a smaller room or you're looking for a room that has to deal with a lot.
Right.
And so hopefully users come to my website and see that and think, oh, I never thought about that. Right, what room size am I dealing with? What other expectations do I have? And so so I'm thinking to the
So you really got
depth
to
of
think out of the
content.
box initially, right? It's
Yeah,
really
right,
coming up with
right.
ideas that where there already isn't content,
Yeah,
coming up with new solutions. I like the idea too of potentially doing an interview with someone from the company itself, and then
right,
you get the
right.
company to reference you. It's sort of this trust factor or
Yeah,
reciprocal connection between the two that gives you a
yeah,
little bit of a competitive advantage. I think
yeah.
that might be something. It's aggressive, but
Absolutely.
it's picking up the phone and saying,
Right.
hey,
Yeah.
I'm an affiliate. I want to sell a lot of product. Can I get
Mm.
5 minutes with the CEO
Yeah.
and talk to him and do a little interview? And then
Yeah.
you have content that nobody else has.
No.
And
And
yeah,
actually, that's a really good point. I I was writing a buying guide for another site
okay,
and loan, and one of the buying guys actually went and interviewed the CEO of the company.
hmm,
Right. So it was an affiliate page, right? But it had all of these amazing insights wrapped into the page, and there was a conversation that they were having, and then the quotes, amazing quotes drawn out as well as
hmm.
lots of informational content that was encouraging you to buy certain products. And I've never seen something like that before, and I don't think I'll ever see something like
They
that
want to
again.
do that. They want to help people who are
Yeah,
selling their
right.
products. So, but so many businesses and affiliates are too afraid to reach out, and
Yeah,
it's so easy to just pick up the
yeah,
phone and
yeah,
schedule something like that. Well,
yeah.
I know we're getting close to the end of our
We
time. I
are.
think we've done
Yeah,
a lot. We went
fine.
from coming up with keywords to how we
Right.
organize them and create a content plan. We talked
Yeah,
about long term and short term content, how to get that
absolutely.
content indexed and
Yeah,
not do shady things, and how to use affiliate marketing and generate hopefully some extra cash flow for people who are
yeah,
interested in
absolutely.
creating
Yeah,
unique content. So I have a lightning round of questions. Are you ready for them?
yeah. Let's do it.
All
Exciting.
right. Number one, who should we be following in the SEO industry, in your opinion? Who are your favorite um, social media thought leaders
Sure.
on SEO
So
or content marketing?
I really love what Ahrefs are doing with their blog. I think that's
Okay.
absolutely incredible. They're producing lots of really, really great, interesting content.
Yeah, Tim's super cool. Kudos to
Yeah,
Tim.
he's absolutely
Yeah.
he's just insanely intelligent as well. Um, really love him. I love Neil Patel just for the basics. I think Neil teaches the basics in a really unique way, and I think no matter how far we get, it's still good to have a good grasp of the basics. I think Neil's excellent at teaching that, and also I think by having a good grasp and going back over the basics continually, you actually start to see things where people are missing. Because if
Hmm.
someone's gone so high level in their strategy, they might be missing something that's really clear and obvious,
That
right?
happens to me at every conference I go to. I'm sitting there listening to a lecture, and I'm like, I can't believe I stopped doing that. I used to do this all
Right,
the
right,
time. Right?
right,
Yeah.
right. And so I think Neil's great at doing that. Matt Diggity is also, I really enjoy reading his content. He also does a roundup every month.
Yep.
That's a newsletter. Sorry, it's a blog post that is actually just, I skim it every month because even if I don't read any of the articles, what he pulls together and the snippets that he pulls together is just gold.
Nice.
Um,
Great.
and then finally, I recommend everyone gets on this, is Stack Marketer. It's a daily email, 5 days a
Okay.
week. Um, and it's just arranged for readability. So they have a top story, a couple of different stories, and they have like a call out box with literally like pithy one line. Here's what you need to know, or here's a trend that we're seeing in SEO or um, Google Ads or whatever. And so
Very
quite
cool.
often I may not have time to read the whole thing,
Yeah.
but I always obsess about that little section. I always think, right, because they give you the insight within a sentence. You're like, okay, great.
Yeah,
I'll go
I love that.
read
I
that.
gotta
Or
add that to
actually,
my list.
yeah,
I get Steve Toth's SEO notebook and
right,
Aleda's weekly SE FOMO, right?
right,
So she's got some great content and does a great weekly roundup.
yeah,
And Steve Toth loves to dive deep into specific topics and talk to
yeah,
people who know how to do some really creative hacks on way to get things
right,
through.
yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
What about your favorite tools? What tools do you use day to day? I
So
could say mine are basically SEMrush, Conductor Searchlight, right, and we of course we live and breathe in Screaming Frog. But what about you?
right, right, right. So I love SEO Power Suite because you got a link outreach
What
module.
is
You
it?
got SEO
SEO
Power Suite.
Power Suite. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I haven't
So
heard that one in a long time.
yeah, so they're based in Belarus. They're really fantastic.
That's an
They
all-in-one, right?
It's all in one, but it's desktop. So I think that kind of dissuades a lot of people.
Ah,
But it's full program. So there's a rank tracker module that you can track where your keywords rank. It's got 10 different ways to find keywords.
uh-huh.
It's got this new SERP feature where you can type in any keyword and it will tell you who's ranking and how their core vitals look, how many links they got to that page, how many links they got overall.
Sure.
It's mind blowing. It basically does the work of about 8 different tools in one screen. I don't
Wow.
think any other tools is doing that at the moment.
And they've been
Um,
around for a long time. So
they
for
have
them to
been,
still be
yeah,
around, they have to have developed their product and kept it up to
yeah.
speed. I hadn't
So
heard that one in a while, but yeah,
yeah,
SEO Power Suite. Okay.
and then they've got a module. They got one of their tools is called Website Auditor, which is
Uh-huh.
essentially like a mini version of Screaming Frog. So it crawls to the website and tells you where you got broken links, where you got link pointing, to redirects, to redirects, to redirects. But it's also got kind of, I guess, it's got kind of a content rewrite module, which tells you if you're over optimizing for a keyword, or you're missing
Mm.
keywords, or you're doing dumb stuff like you've left alt tags out, or you
Very
haven't put
cool.
your keyword in the URL or the title. So it's
Sounds like it's got a lot of features. What
yeah.
are some other tools that you use other than SEO Power Suite?
So then I use the basic ones. So I use Screaming Frog, obviously, which is
Okay.
it's still so powerful.
Hmm.
It looks like nothing, but actually once you actually dive into it, it's amazing. And then I use Google's Search Console. I'm in there every day.
Yep.
I look at that as kind of a first defense
Okay.
because it shows you if you've made dumb mistakes, right?
Right.
So if you've got pages indexed that are now not redirecting properly, it finds it. It will shout at you. So I love that. I
Hmm.
also love analytics because again, really, really easy to understand data that's actionable and that you can go away and say, right, I can see
Sure.
the bounce rate on that page is way off the chart. I'm not matching the user intent, so let's go back and rewrite that.
Or you could find some broken links by going into
Right,
title context where it says not found and say, hey, I've got
right,
external links coming in that
right.
Screaming Frog isn't picking up because it's only
Yeah,
using internal. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
What's one SEO myth that drives you nuts?
Just one, geez.
Pick one.
Duplicate content.
Okay.
So I think people have this myth that if you have very similar content on your site and on another site, that Google is going to penalize you. And the way to validate that that's a myth is go type in ap.com and take the title from any AP story, Google it, and you'll see that that exact same piece of content is being promulgated over 20, 30, 40 sites.
Sure.
Because AP are obviously a content brokerage, right? That sell news stories to whoever word them. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, I think we forget how smart Google is at differentiating unique content and duplicate content. So I think if you're running an e-commerce brand and you've got, say, 12 varieties of the same thing, but they're slightly different, you're obviously going to have very, very similar duplicate content. And I think Google understands that, right, it's the color that's changed, or it's the shape that's changed, and so Google understands that and doesn't discounts that in a way that we may not kind of think that it does, but it does. And you just have to look at any major retailer to see that. So I think duplicate content is a big myth, and I think also another way of validating that is what gets indexed. If you've got two very similar pages, what's getting indexed, what's getting the traffic, can you not surmise them into one?
It makes a lot of sense.
That's another thing that you can do.
We love to use the site operator on our website in Google too, and put phrases and quotes to see if we can find where we might have potential URLs that don't need to be indexed. And like you said, it's not a penalty, but it does maybe help a little bit of your crawl budget and getting search engines to to see the most important pages and maybe ignore the ones that aren't as important, like the ones that have similar duplicate content.
Right, exactly.
I love that. So you've got this great content map course. You want to tell everyone about what that is and why they should sign up for it?
Sure. So it's currently $49, so it's really inexpensive. And basically, it's 60 modules, and I take you through basically how I build content framework for affiliate sites or SMEs or for e-commerce brands. And basically, I take you through how to come up with keyword ideas. And I teach 10 different ways that you can come up with keyword ideas that you don't need a tool for. And then take you through how to validate them, and then how to pick out the best kind of keywords for you to instantly rank for. Again, like we talked about previously, there's a massive difference between being able to rank for something and being hypothetical, and so I talk through that. I then talk about how to build out topic clusters and how to then put it into a framework that makes sense in terms of getting you to get started publishing, and how to then, again, be consistent with what you're publishing and how you're publishing it. I touched a little bit on how to manage teams, because obviously the goal as a website owner is to become an editor and not a content writer.
Right.
And so how to structure that and how to decide what pieces you should be writing and what pieces you can farm out. And then I talk about how to measure, how to set KPIs to measure your success. Because I think that's a big thing that lots of business owners miss, especially online. Because they may be very, very comfortable with setting KPIs for other marketing channels, but because they don't get how web works, and they don't understand that they can apply those traditional metrics or the traditional framework to online, they don't think, well, we just chuck loads of money at it, it'll be fine. Whereas I think
it also helps build some accountability, right, Ashley?
Right, exactly.
It keeps people accountable to specific goals instead of it just being let's just do some things. It's like, no, let's set some goals and let's measure those goals. I love that.
Right, exactly. But
very cool. And when they sign up on your website, they just go to
adsdigitalgroup.co.uk.
Awesome. And then you click on services and courses.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, great. And anyway, somebody could find you on follow you on social media. What's your handle there?
Right.
On,
so
Facebook and Twitter.
Very, very active on Instagram. And so people are more than welcome to follow me or to hit me up via private messaging. So I'm just A_J_Saunders.
Okay. That's easy enough.
That's easy enough.
Cool. This has been a lot of fun, Ashley. I've really enjoyed talking about content strategy.
Yeah.
And now I want to schedule something to do something with Search Console, because you're right. There's so many things and gripes and complaints and whines that I have. We might have to figure out how to get John Mew into that one, or but thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've had a great time. This is
Yeah,
so
and
much
I
fun.
definitely look forward to staying in contact too.
Yeah,
So thanks
likewise.
everybody for listening today, and Ashley, thanks for being on the show. We'll talk
Oh,
soon.
lovely. Yeah.